So I don't know if you guys recognize Killer McMurderer over here, but he is the guy who shot up Pensacola Air Base, the Saudi Arabian national who was there for flight training, who shot up the Pensacola Air Base and killed 3 service members a couple of years ago. So let me pull up this article here. Let me put 7 minutes on the clock. And let's go. So I saw the headline. Toxic command climate was a factor in NAS Pensacola's shooting investigation finds. And at first, I was like pissed off. Like, toxic command climate was the reason that this guy from Saudi Arabia who was radicalized walked in and shot 3 sailors. I don't buy it. But reading down here into the article, I'm going to try to report to you guys non-biasedly, and I'll see what you guys think. So, and I'll tell you my own thoughts, which are biased. But a U.S. Navy investigation has determined that the Saudi pilot who killed 3 people when he opened fire on Florida's Naval Air Station Pensacola last year was self-radicalized. However, it also found that Navy leaders could have picked up on the pattern of It was also found that the Navy leaders could have picked up on the pattern of negative behaviors exacerbated by the toxic command climate at the base. So a full 260-page investigation was released Friday that you can look up. Second Lieutenant Mohammed Al-Shamrani, a 21-year-old Royal Saudi Air Force member, was motivated by anti-American and jihadist sentiment. The aviation training climate likely increased his chances of successfully carrying out the December 6, 2019 attack that killed 3 sailors and injured 8 others. Before I move on to, reading who was killed here, he was radicalized. He was anti-American. He was conducting a jihad. Like, that is what happened. So that's important to note. This is not some innocent victim here. This guy was a terrorist, and he killed Americans. So I just want to be totally clear about that before we even move forward at all. The 3 victims were Ensign Joshua Watson, Naval Air Crewman 3rd Class Mohammed Haitham, and Cameron S. Walters, who was also a young sailor. These guys weren't even involved. Like, these Americans that were killed had nothing to do with the command that this guy was a part of or the grievances that he had. So here's where I was upset. And I was like, why are they blaming this on toxic leadership? I had to get more information. So let's get down to the more information. So the self-radicalization of Second Lieutenant Ashmanrani was the primary cause of this fatal attack. Yes, obviously, the primary cause was that he was a terrorist and he killed Americans. According to the incident summary, which was signed by the Chief of Naval Operations, who is Mike Gilday in July, his actions and behaviors, along with the organizational environment inherent to the aviation pipeline, likely increase his probability of committing an insider attack. Military leaders, government employees, contracted employees, peers, and civilians knew of isolated events and indicators, but all remained unaware of the complete picture. See something, say something, right? That's why NCIS has these investigation units. It's a see something, say something environment. So if you see something, say something. So that way, maybe you think you only see one minor thing, but maybe somebody else saw another minor thing, and it starts to come together, right? So the intelligence officials, law enforcement officials can get the big picture. So the Secretary of the Navy issued a fleet-wide stand-down to address these insider threats and active shooter training, which is important. But, of course, when a shooting starts, there's probably going to be some people who are caught in the initial violence of action there by the perpetrator and going to get hurt. So then I was like, okay, so where's the toxic leadership part? What could possibly have been the factor here? And we all know in the military, there's some inappropriate comments made. There's some inappropriate joking, but it's only as inappropriate as people receive it as, right? And then you have to say something, maybe reel some people back, and the military is getting better as to be a more sensitive climate to that type of stuff, but certainly we've probably all been around some inappropriate stuff. So I know I have, and I've called it out too, because I don't believe, especially when I was working as an instructor, when I was an instructor and we had students, I never believed we should have been acting inappropriately around the students because they need to have that initial baseline of professionalism, adherence to cultural, normalcies that we're trying to build here, and just learn their job. And the most important thing should be learning their job. So any distractions that are added in there by goofing around, horseplay, whatever, trash talking is not going to help them learn a job. So prior to flight school in Pensacola, al-Shamrani began his pre-flight training in Joint Base San Antonio Lackland. Officials with the DLI, the Defense Language Institute, placed him on academic probation for lack of growth. So he was like rolled back. So he was on some academic problems, which cannot be good for the psyche. But then in Pensacola, a key factor in this shooting was the unprofessional behavior and harassment. I'm getting upset. A key factor was the unprofessional behavior and harassment from a contracted instructor and a group of instructors who stood idly by at the base within Training Wing 6 or TW6, the host training wing at the Florida base in Pensacola. The individual's name and formal title were redacted, but he worked for the Delaware Resource Group, which is the contracting company out of Oklahoma. 3 students reported that the instructor made homophobic comments regarding their hairstyles and personal grooming. Let's just really quick remember for a second that these guys are Saudi Arabian nationals who in Saudi Arabia have very negative views on homosexuality. It is a very serious offense to be considered or be accused of being homosexual. So you got to kind of know your audience there, bud. Multiple complaints were filed against the contractor. So the initial thought that I had was, well, were there any formal grievances filed? There were. Multiple complaints were filed against the contractor. Al-Shamrani was among them. After the instructor referred to him as porn stash, another student also submitted, which you might think is funny. We make those jokes with our shipmates or our battle buddies, but this is a Saudi Arabian national student who's coming from another country who doesn't know what it's like to be in America, doesn't know what Americans are like. And if somebody's already having, attempts made at them to radicalize them, and then you exile them from the group, you kind of push them out and make fun of them and insult them and insinuate that they might be gay. Yeah, I can see how that would push them in that direction 100%. For months, unprofessional behavior towards students persisted and went uncorrected. One student reported that the instructor referred to him as the asshole in front of other students and colleagues. Multiple students reported overhearing the instructor tell Saudi students that they stink, including one occasion where the instructor publicly humiliated a student and sent him home to shower. The instructor told the Saudi students, as long as you don't respect women in your country, I won't respect you either. Dude, you're not at war with these guys. They're your students. If you can't handle your job, quit. What I'm curious about, what I'd like to know is, did this instructor file any grievances with his company about any of this stuff? Or did he just take it upon himself to, insult this student? These people are not Americans. They're from other countries. It's different. People have different cultures. It's okay to have a different culture. Now, I'm not saying this dude's some kind of victim. I said that before, and I want to reiterate it. The guy who shot those people in Pensacola is not a victim. He's a terrorist. Was he pushed towards terror to be radicalized because he hated his flight instructor? Maybe. Could have this been prevented? Maybe. I don't want to play, Monday morning quarterback here too much, but yeah, maybe. It certainly seems like it's possible. Now, the complaints from the students reached leaders within the CNAT, or the Chief of Naval Air Training, and people were tasked with resolving the incident with Shamrani, and concluded that the instructor should meet with him to apologize. When Shamrani was unsatisfied with the apology, the ground training officer in charge asked him what it would take to correct the misstep, and now here's where the red flags start popping up. It might have been too late at this point. Al-Shamrani replied, I want his hit, and then pauses and says, I want something to happen to him. People said, they think what he was going to say before he didn't finish the sentence was, I want his head. He was going to say, I want his head. Talk about a red flag. Now, maybe at this point, unfortunately, you would take that student and just send him home. Okay? Maybe you would take that student, roll him out of the class, maybe drop him from the class for administrative reasons, whatever, and send him back to Saudi Arabia. He's obviously not adjusting well. The whole situation was mishandled, and now he's showing some red flags. So maybe send him home. But they didn't. Then there was some previous complaints that the Navy was aware of, not just against the instructor, but the command climate overall. Norwegian and German student pilots also submitted complaints dating back to 2013. So it sounds like the instructors at this group were belittling, berating anybody who was coming to their school. I assume they were doing the same thing. I assume, maybe wrongly, that they were doing the same thing to American students. Right? They might have been doing the same thing to American students, but maybe it was like more accepted, or people were less apt to file a complaint because, those were the instructors and the instructor's always right and that kind of attitude. But that was, abusive of the instructors. So it definitely, as it says here, the incidents ranged from targeted micromanagement, taking students away from their aviation training to do meaningless chores such as cleaning, to derogatory comments made in front of other leaders and peers. A toxic microclimate due to unprofessionalism. Now, here's the jacked up thing. So officials said that there was improper oversight of Al-Shamrani, given that he reported to 5 separate commands over an 18-month period during his training. Yet an instructor from TW6 was present while Al-Shamrani applied to purchase a firearm in 2019. Another red flag, because he's not allowed to do that. It's illegal. He's not a citizen, and it's illegal by Saudi Arabian standards. And an instructor was there? Come on. Are you serious? Then he moved it to Pensacola, and then he used it to shoot Americans in 2019. He went AWOL, and then he came back to base and killed these Americans. And I remember that they were like suspending all foreign training at some point, but here's the aftermath of the attack. Following the attack, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Ministry of Defense agreed to enhance its host nation screening and vetting protocols. Then Defense Secretary, no longer, Mark Esper, and former Navy Secretary Thomas Modly, which has changed a few times, issued an immediate guidance to further review installation security protocols and impose solutions, such as heightened security. The Navy issued multiple analysis into laws, regulations, blah, blah, blah. But there's so many ways that this could have been caught, prevented, addressed beforehand, before it got this bad, and resulted in the death. And I'm going to leave it with this, because it ultimately resulted in the deaths of Ensign Joshua Watson, Petty Officer 3rd Class Mohammed Haidam, and I think Airman Cameron Walters. So those were the victims, and that's what I want to remember is the victims. And I guess I'll just say, I'm way over to 7 minutes, and I guess I'll just say, see something, say something. See something, say something. Don't be afraid of what might happen. Just say what you honestly saw, don't make stuff up. But if you honestly saw something that concerned you, say something, because who knows what part of a bigger puzzle whatever you witnessed fits into. Okay? So there's that one. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button up in the corner here and check out this next video. If you want, in the description down below, there's links where you can get ScuttleButt Show merch and find out how you can support the channel. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you guys very soon.